and welcome to the Baylor postgame on the Baylor Lariat Radio. The Baylor football team just beat the Samford Bulldogs 42-7 on this Week 3 matchup. Hope y'all are doing well. I'm Jeffrey Cohen. Here alongside me is Dylan Fink. And Dylan, a tune-up game for the Bears. And at most points, it went the way you kind of expected. A big win, 42-7, but at times, Sawyer Robertson especially looking shaky today.
No, it definitely was. 2 interceptions, a third that was ruled incomplete, so it didn't go into the stat book. Only a 62% completion rate. It was definitely a concerning show of the redshirt senior quarterback coming in here on this Heisman campaign that the team is pushing him on, performing so poorly against a team like Samford, only throwing for 211 yards, following back-to-back 400-yard passing games. It's definitely something to be concerned about, not in the long run, but just kind of a little hiccup.
Yeah, and we had talked about it during the broadcast, but it may be just he's caught off guard by a game that's not necessarily as competitive as, say, Auburn or SMU, and just didn't have his best football, just didn't connect on a lot of throws. Again, a couple of miscues, those interceptions as well. And we said it kind of reminded us of that game in Houston last year, threw a couple of picks, just didn't look his best. But again, now you've got a week heading up against Arizona State. Another really good team will be back here in McLean Stadium for a Saturday night kickoff. What do you think Baylor as a whole needs to do to prepare for another ranked matchup?
I think the defense, based off the way they played today, looks very good. If they could, maintain the same amount of dominance that they had over Samford today, the same aggression, the same ability to wrap up, then they will be okay, specifically in the secondary. I think Sawyer Robertson, we talked about his concerns, his struggles today. I'm not worried about him versus Arizona State. I think this is, like you said, Samford is a game where you can have pickups. You can get things off your chest. Sawyer's been playing in back-to-back, very aggressive, very competitive games, and that's the same as what Arizona State will be, and that's where we've seen him drive them up. If you look at last year, he threw 2 interceptions against a 3-win Houston team. I'm not concerned about him versus Arizona State. I think this is something where we've seen Sawyer go into the lab after hiccups before and come out following that Houston game last year. He threw 2 interceptions and he came out and threw for 400 yards against Kansas next week and started the game off 11 for 11. So I think Arizona State is not something that we should be concerned about Sawyer's performance in. I think if we could just if Baylor can maintain the aggression that they had today, then the defense will be able to thrive and Sawyer will be back in his prime form that we have seen him in the past.
Yeah, and coming up over the next couple weeks, you've got Arizona State at home, and then you got K-State, who's not as good as what people initially thought, right? Ranked in the top 25 in the preseason, but again, it's just been rough. They now dropped to 1-3 with their loss to Arizona last night, and then you go to TCU at their place in Fort Worth. So again, not an easy couple weeks heading up, and again, we looked to the defense. There were some guys that definitely shined. Travion Barnes, the freshman linebacker, led the team with 6 tackles, all of them solo. Micah Gifford, 2 tackles himself, a sack, and an interception as well. Again, a guy that doesn't get a lot of playing time, but again, he showed up, even though it was in garbage time, but that's what you want to see from your guys that don't get a lot of playing time, that they go hard all 60 minutes, and whenever they get the opportunity, they show out. And what else did you like about this defense today?
I'm on the same note of what you're saying. It's just Samford is a game where they could have come out and happily, just gone half at it. Don't need to go all in. Don't need to put 100% on something. And the ability to come out and just, feel the aggression. We saw multiple takedowns by the defense, wrap-ups, and then slamming these other players to the ground with such aggression that I liked to see. I mean, was it needed against Samford? Probably not. But it was nice to see it be demonstrated by our defense leading into this difficult conference matchup that we have, especially down the road when we reach teams like K-State, like TCU, those away games that will prove to be more difficult. I think it was a great showing for the defense to be able to step up and demonstrate that on every play, doing the little things and demonstrating the aggression that Dave Aranda asked them to in the press conference this week.
Yeah, another guy that you look to at that defense, LeVar Thornton, junior cornerback, got a tackle, also an interception and a pass breakup today. These guys, first time getting multiple interceptions in a game this season, and they're really starting to come along. I mean, again, Samford is a struggling FCS team, but still, if you can do the things right, do the little things right against teams like Samford, I think that's a good momentum shift and just a good way to kind of go into maybe a more tight matchup that you're going to be in next week. But also another bright spot I like to bring up is that run game, right?
Mm.
Wasn't great week one against Auburn. Bryson Washington only had 51 yards, but then last week started off slow, worked its way as the game went on, especially into overtime. He ended with 115 yards and 2 touchdowns. But now today we really saw what we saw from Bryson Washington last year: 21 runs, 135 yards, and 2 touchdowns. What was it about that run game that was so effective for Baylor today?
I love seeing Bryson develop. I love seeing him get back out there and run for the 135 yards. I think his biggest pro is that he averaged 6.4 yards per carry. That's the last 2 weeks he's been averaging about 3 yards per carry. And being able to bounce back and kind of, this is the first time we've seen Bryson demonstrate adversity because we hadn't seen him until last season. That was when we first got to see him. And kind of from the get-go, starting in that Air Force game where he broke out with 100 yards, we saw him kind of stay on that momentum the entire time. Outside the LSU game where he left early due to an injury. I think getting to see him perform poorly against Auburn, kind of have to struggle to get off of last week, off of 30 carries, and struggle with only 3 yards of carry, despite the 100 yards they ran for. Seeing him today kind of find his holes, blow up, and be able to get the long runs, like the 23-yard rush, the 31-yard rush in the first quarter. I think it was exciting to see Bryson be able to find that. I think the other pro of that was looking at the development of the offense and being able to find when the gaps in the middle aren't working, be able to bounce outside. I think that was something that Michael Turner demonstrated well in his first appearance with the Bears. But where we saw last week at SMU, kind of repetition of just continually trying up the middle until it finally worked. Kind of a fighting through adversity this week demonstrated by the run game and be able to figure out where are the holes, where can we gain off of this, and how can we make the run game through their play.
Yeah, and that was something starting right tackle Caden Saraki had talked about on Tuesday in the press conference, is that was such a major focus heading into SMU and heading into this week, is making sure that this run game can be effective, take some of the workload off of Sawyer Robertson, and balance out this offense. And I think today we saw a run-heavy offense. Sawyer, with, as we said, those miscues, that forced Baylor and Jake Spavital to go to Bryson Washington, go to Michael Turner, to go to Caden Knighton, and it worked very well. They were able to find those gaps up the middle, be able to work their way around some of those linebackers as well, getting good chunks. And it was just overall, I think, if you're Jake Spavital, you really, really liked what you saw from the O-line and your running back today.
Absolutely. I really liked Spavital's play calling today. He had a lot of critiques after the last two games, some of the decisions he was making, and today he seemed to bounce back with that. Kind of going back into some of the heroics that we saw last year, throwing the deep ball, pushing for those outside runs that can lead to huge gains. The Bears won the yard battle, 468 to 195 today, which I think, despite an opponent like Samford, is an impressive showing for the Bears. I think I like what the Bears are presenting, and I think I like what we have here into the rest of the season, especially going into conference play next week. I'm not upset about where the Bears sit going into Arizona State next week.
Yeah, well, now coming up, their schedule, as we mentioned, next week, they've got Arizona State kickoff at 6:30. We'll be broadcasting that on the Baylor Lariat Radio. Catch that on YouTube. Kickoff will be at 6:30 p.m. Central Time, and our broadcast will begin at 6:10. Then they go to Stillwater, play Oklahoma State, and then they'll have K-State here in Waco, and then they'll go to TCU. And then after that, their next real challenge is Utah on November 15th. So I think this stretch is really going to be what determines how they do this season. They've already shown that they can be a contender. They can be a tough team and play against other really good teams. But now I think if they can really get through and not lose very many of these games coming up over the next month, I think they have a real chance of making the Big 12 championship.
Absolutely. I think this is a Big 12 championship team. I think this has potential to be a college football playoff team. All that needs to be seen is execution. Going back to the way we started this post-game show, talking about the little things, the way the defense played today, just making sure you're doing the right thing on the right plays. If the Bears can get that done, the talent is there to be the winning team that the fans expect the Bears to be. And that's what they demonstrated today against Samford. In faces of difficulty, Sawyer throwing those interceptions, struggling to find completions in the third quarter, the defense was able to step up and make sure that Samford didn't respond. And in the fourth quarter, being able to put the run game to use, to be able to push the lead a little bit further. Definitely demonstrated Baylor's ability to kind of look in the face of difficulty and respond to it.
Well, that'll do it from us here at the postgame show here at McLean Stadium. Bears take this one 42-7 as they improve to 2-1 on the season. Samford falls to 0-3. But for us on the Baylor Lariat Radio, that'll do it from us today. We'll be back out tomorrow at Betty Lou Mays Field for Baylor versus Abilene Christian Baylor soccer. Kickoff will be at 7 p.m. tomorrow. Our broadcast with myself and Dylan over here. Our broadcast will start at 6:40. You can find us on YouTube at Baylor Lariat Radio, so make sure to stay tuned for that. And that'll do it from us here at McLean Stadium. Bears win 42-7. And this has been Baylor football on the Baylor Lariat Radio.
Hey,